I will go ahead and get us started. My name is Jess. I am the Wildlife Project Coordinator here at Evergreen Fire and Rescue. This evening we are going to be going over all things related to wildland fire in regards to what you can do around your property, your structure, as well as preparing yourself and your family in the event of a wildfire. Now, what I want to start with is a little bit of background on how we got to where we are. Because the reality is we've neglected our forests for over 110 years. We didn't get into this problem overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. With this, we started suppressing wildland fires over 110 years ago. Our forest, where we have chosen to live, is designed to burn. Fire is a natural factor in our forest. It is designed to burn to keep it healthy. And unfortunately, what we have now is incredibly unhealthy. That's why we have so many sick trees. Our forests are overgrown, and the trees are dying. Anybody recognize this? Recognize that road right here at the bottom? Meadow Drive. Independence. Our forests need fire. We took the health out of the forest by suppressing fire. I know I've got a pretty solid brute forest contingent in here tonight. This is y'all's backyard, you know it. Lodgepole are designed to burn. They are designed for full stand replacement. And we have suppressed that fire. This is what a natural forest should look like. When fire is allowed to do its job, it removes the unhealthy trees. It keeps proper tree spacing. It opens up the forest so that disease and bug infestation doesn't travel so easily and readily between the trees. We've got a north-facing forest. We've got ponderosa. Should be able to ride 6 horses abreast through a ponderosa stand. When they came across to the west, it was 6 horses abreast through the ponderosa stands. Pick a place now that hasn't been mitigated that you could ride 6 horses wide through that are ponderosa, park-like ponderosa. And then mixed conifer stand. Species diversity, age diversity, healthy forest. What we know is that a healthy forest is a fire-resilient forest. Healthy forests can handle healthy fire. A lightning strike in a healthy forest does not become a catastrophic wildland fire. But what did we do? We suppressed fire, and we built our houses right in the middle of an unhealthy forest. Everybody recognize that top picture? That's Elephant View a few years ago. Now, what I want you to take note of in this photo here to the right, you see all these little spots over here? All right, keep that in mind as we move forward. We are not going to stop these wildfires from happening. They are going to happen. They are going to continue to happen. I'll speak more to it later, that I fully believe they're going to continue to escalate. What we know is that the recommendations that we provide through our free home assessments are based in science, and that science is to help your home stand alone with nobody there in the event of these catastrophic wildland fires. Homes in wildland fires burn from 3 different sources. Direct flame, and that's the one everyone thinks is going to be the one that comes for their home. It's going to be that big wall of fire, super scary, and that's what's going to burn your house. It's the least likely way your house will burn. Radiant heat is the second way your house is likely to burn. Generally, that's going to be vegetation that is in flame, close to your house, and then that heat from that campfire heat, that radiant heat, that heat then does something like break out a window or ignite the siding. It's going to compromise the structure in some way, shape, or form. The most common way homes burn in wildland fires, embers. So those spot fires I showed you in that previous slide, those are spot fires from embers. Okay, some of the photos that we're going to talk about in here. My first fire was the Angora fire in 2007 in Lake Tahoe, Lake Valley Fire District. With that fire, our first fully involved structure was 1.5 miles ahead of the fire front. The embers cast out and landed on their back deck where they had firewood. I always tell people, you think about our snowstorms. Heck, we had one of those snow globe snowstorms this past weekend, right? Think about those snowflakes and light them on fire. That's what's raining down on our properties ahead of these fires. That's what we're looking at, helping you harden your home against and build your defensible space around. So I'll actually end up showing you this structure. This was one of my homes in the Angora fire. The University of Evergreen's Cooperative Extension took it and helped us with some home hardening graphics on it. These are the things that we want you thinking about. I'm going to talk a little bit more in a minute about the home assessments that we do. But when we come out, we're looking at all of these potential weak spots on your structure and around your house and within your defensible space zone. So we look at things like the vents, the eaves, the roof, pine needles, skylights, dormers, weak spots on roofs, whether you've got a spark arrestor, the siding, little things like the garbage can, the vegetation, decorations, firewood pile, fence, things like that. All of those things present a weak spot on your house where an ember can land and ignite. So what I think about is if you were to stand in your front yard and take ping pong balls, tennis balls, and just start launching them at your house, what do they land in? Think about if those ping pong balls or those tennis balls were on fire. What happens? How comfortable do you feel with where they land? You can see this is that house that UNR used. These are all 3 homes from my Angora fire. Can anyone tell me something they see in here that is distinct about all 3 of these structures burning?
Trees right over them.
What was that?
All the trees, all the vegetation right over them.
Exactly. These homes all burned from ember intrusion. The vegetation around them, not on fire. I had multiple homes that the house burned the trees. The trees were not burning the house. Vegetation all around these homes stayed green. This area in particular, the fire moved in on the ground. It moved in on the ground because we had done a treatment adjacent to this neighborhood. So the fire moved in on the ground. Unfortunately, our resources were overwhelmed, and because we had structures involved further ahead of the fire, our engines had gone to the structure fires out ahead of it. Fire moved in on the ground with no resources. The homes were not hardened. Therefore, the house is ignited through the embers and the ground fires. Home hardening. Class A roof, that is your #1 priority on your structure. Most people in this area have already had those roofs updated. If you survived last summer's hailstorm, a lot of us got our roofs redone, courtesy of the hailstorm, and I'll discuss that more when we talk about insurance in a bit. Class A roof. Your roof is your biggest target on your property. As those embers are raining down, that is the biggest target. They're hitting the roof, they're going to roll down. Thinking about keeping your gutters clean, things like that. That roof, keep it well maintained. Make sure there are no nooks and crannies, holes, any of that kind of stuff. Pine needles accumulated around the dormers or skylights or solar panels. We want to make sure that anywhere there is an opening, you have screened it, whether it's attic, like eaves, roof vents, any of your vents. You want 1/8 inch or smaller screening. Using your, so the top 3 vulnerabilities on structures, it's roof, windows, and decks. Then fences. Making sure that your windows are double pane or greater. Greater is encouraged. That radiant heat factor, that's where the windows come into play. With radiant heat, single pane windows break very easily, and then the embers land inside your house, and your house burns from the inside out. On a side note, in case I don't remember to mention it during evacuation, a lot of us up here do not have air conditioning. During evacuations, close your windows. I had homes that I lost because they left their windows. Tahoe, we're the same as up here, we don't have air conditioning. Windows were open, it was a hot Sunday afternoon. I had a lot of people, the locals, all go off the hill to go grocery shopping. They left their windows open, the homes burned from the inside out. So, if you're evacuating, close your windows. Make sure they're double pane, at least. Again, those embers, they're going to hit the side of the house, they're going to hit the roof, and they're going to drop. We'll talk more about that 0 to 5 foot zone. But as those embers drop, what are they dropping into and up against? So what we recommend is creating a 6-inch non-combustible gap at the bottom of your structure. So as those embers, and you think about where your snow eddies and accumulates, where those pine needles eddy and accumulate, those wind patterns are going to be similar around your property with these embers. So where those pine needles accumulate and that snow accumulates, having that non-combustible space is going to protect you from those embers that will accumulate there. If they have nothing to ignite, then they're just going to fizzle out. And I did forget to mention as we got started, we will have questions afterwards. So if you're thinking of questions, feel free to jot them down. So this model, when I was in Tahoe, I had the privilege of working with Dr. Steve Quarles, who at the time was at UC Berkeley's Cooperative Extension. He then went on to work for IVHS, who is leading a lot of the home hardening stuff. But a lot of his research is where we have our home hardening. I can remember when he transferred over to IVHS, and he was absolutely giddy because they gave him a house on a turntable and ember machines. What we look at, and I'll show you that picture here in just a sec, but what we're looking at, and we're going to see with the fire on it, are examples of what not to do and examples of what to do. How to harden your home versus, quite frankly, how a lot of our mountain homes came to us. Mulch wood chips around, standard wood decking, wood siding, the wood shingle roofs, single pane windows. So that's Steve's turntable, and those are the ember machines. So those ember machines just absolutely blasted this structure, and then the structure spins around to make sure you catch every angle. But what you can see here is that home hardening works. It's really basic science. Don't give embers something to burn. And we like to burn things. That's kind of inherent in the fire service. This season in January, Keenan Crowdy, one of our mitigation specialists, he built and did a burn demonstration. Stay tuned, we're going to do more of these. It was incredibly well received. We had a great time. I think folks learned a lot. But what we did is redwood siding, redwood paneling, non-treated wood, a fiber cement siding, and then a topical coating on this last one. We also stacked some juniper around it. Juniper is considered a little green gas can, so we used those, and then we used true ember brand boxes to light it on fire, which is how you get the Class A, B, and C ratings are with brands. And we use the Class C brand, which is a little chunk of wood about that big. So you get your home dialed in. Now, one of the things that we also recommend when we come out to our home assessment inspections and do for you is recommend what to do within your defensible space zone. The defensible space zone is designed to handle those three different ways your home burns from fire: direct flame, radiant heat, and embers. So creating the defensible space around your zone is so that you can change the fire behavior around your house. You've done the work hardening it, do the work protecting it as the fire moves in. What we like to talk about are the three different zones. It's a 0 to 5 foot zone, 5 to 30 foot zone, and a 30 to 100 foot zone. I tend to always fall back onto the nicknames we had in Tahoe, which is the non-combustible zone, the lean, clean, and green zone, and the reduced fuel zone. Now with those three zones, like I said, we're addressing the three different ways homes can ignite. This is another angle of looking at it. Now, most of our properties, I can say we're hard pressed to find any property that's quite that flat here. We do adjust when we come out. We will adjust those distances based on the slope of your property. That 0 to 5 foot zone, we'll talk here first. We've taken care of our structural ignitability. That 0 to 5 foot zone, that is your non-combustible zone. That is your first priority zone as well. Because what did I say? Those embers are going to be hitting the house and dropping. They're dropping into that zone. If you have a stack of firewood neatly placed right up against the side of your structure, what are those embers dropping into? What's firewood supposed to do? It's supposed to burn. Non-combustible. Non-combustible, non-negotiable. Pine needles. Those winds that eddy those pine needles into all those nooks and crannies. Break them out. Bare dirt or rock. You can have flower beds. I'll talk more about this in a minute, but we do have a Firewise landscaping presentation next week, next Thursday. You can have some well-maintained, well-irrigated herbaceous plants within that 0 to 5 foot zone, but you want to be mindful of it. We want to get anything that can burn. Again, thinking about it, I'm throwing tennis balls and ping pong balls, and I lit them on fire. What are they landing in, and what are they doing? This is a structure as part of a demonstration garden we did in Incline Village, and you can see firewood pile, the juniper, this is a white fir growing up under the eaves. You can kind of see, it's hard to tell up here, but you can kind of see the shade roof with the pine needles on it. Class A roof, clean, 0 to 5 foot zone, rock. Pine needles. This is another structure in my Angora fire, pine needles. Something simple, and that's what got it. Again, 0 to 5 foot zone. We are not, one of the things that we hear a lot as a concern is people think, well, you're going to come out and you're going to ask me to clear cut my property. Absolutely not. I actually am pretty adamantly against that. Again, you saw those structures. Those structures burn the trees. What I want is a healthy forest because that's a fire-resilient forest. We move up here so that we can live in this environment, but it's also our responsibility to take care of it, and we haven't been doing that, so we need to clean it up. We need to fix things. The 5 to 30 foot zone, that lean, clean, and green zone, you can see there's trees in there, right? There's vegetation in there. It's okay, but it needs to be smart vegetation. We're going to break up the fuel ladders, the fire ladders. We talk about the ladders in the fire service. We don't want a ground fire that's creeping in the pine needles to catch the bush on fire that's next to the small tree that's underneath the canopy of the bigger tree. That's a fire ladder. That's a vertical fire ladder. So we pop holes in the ladder. We break out the holes, we break out the rungs so that versa, it's not going to ignite it because it catches 3 rungs of the ladder underneath it. We take out all the dead, diseased, and dying trees in that 5 to 30 foot zone. Again, lean, clean, and green. These are healthy pieces of vegetation within that 5 to 30 foot zone. We don't want that ignition. The 5 to 30 foot zone is dealing with radiant heat. Remember I said our 3 zones are factored by the 3 ways our homes burn. Radiant heat is the impact that can happen in that 5 to 30 foot zone. And we want to reduce the ability for radiant heat to impact your structure. If you've got a row of trees that the entire canopies are touching, that's a horizontal fuel ladder. So if you've got a crown fire out in the wildland, it's going to easily pull right into your property because you haven't broken rungs out of that ladder. We want to separate and space the trees. That also adds to the health of the trees. Our trees are over-competing for resources, and they're struggling, so it opens them up to susceptibility from dwarf mistletoe and beetle infestation. Dead, diseased, and dying, break up our fuel ladders, get things out from under the drip lines of the trees. So if you've got bushes under this tree, we're going to recommend you clean it out. Again, if I have a bush under this tree and it ignites, you see how it's starting to pull up into the canopy? Don't be the reason we get a ground fire because your backyard campfire ripped up into the canopy, right? Again, 3 zones. No clear cutting. Reduced fuel zone. The 3rd way your home is likely to burn from a fire is direct flame. So how can we change and alter that? In our reduced fuel zone, what I want you to think about that zone looking like at 30 to 100 feet, 30 to 150, depending on your slope, that area should look like our forest should look like had we allowed fire to do its job all these years. So the disease, the dying, they might torch up. You could have like one dead snag out there, wildlife trees, but it's still open canopy, things are separated, things are limbed up, you don't have to worry as much about ladder fuels. The intent of that zone is that if you've got a wildland fire moving towards your property, this healthy forest in that outer zone, because we're recreating what our forest should look like, that healthy zone will put fire on the ground. We can't fight it if it's in the canopy. But if we can get fire on the ground, we can fight it. And if we can make our forested area around our homes healthy, then we can fight it. If fire moves in on the ground on your property and you've done that 5 to 30 foot zone, lean, clean, and green. It's going to just skunk around. It might torch a bush here. It might even, try and skunk up a tree a little bit, but it won't get aggressive. We're going to change that fire behavior as it moves towards your property. And then if it gets all the way to that 0 to 5 foot zone, it's non-combustible. That fire is dead in the water. We're going to change the fire behavior as it moves towards your property. So we've addressed radiant heat, we've addressed direct flame contact, and through home hardening and 0 to 5 foot non-combustible, we address the embers. This is what we've got right now. And what people fail to realize, and I'll ask actually, has anybody in here been through a wildland fire? Which fire?
In California, but years ago.
Okay, whereabouts? Dixie fire?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what we know is when these catastrophic wildland fires come through, and unfortunately we're going to see these more and more. What happens, because our forests are so unhealthy, they are full of dead, diseased, and dying. Everything is far too close together. When those fires come through, it nukes. We will never see a forest like ours again in our lifetime. Our great-grandkids will never see a forest like this in our lifetime. Because we didn't take care of it, it nuked, and that soil will not support regrowth. of a mixed conifer forest. If we do mitigation work to open up the canopy, to remove the dead, diseased, and dying, when fire comes through, fire will come through in a more healthy, manageable, and fightable way. We'll still lose trees. We may even still lose homes. But we'll at least have some of our forest left. I touched on this a little bit earlier. We are going to have a Firewise landscaping presentation next Thursday, I believe it is. In the back, you likely got, and I'll talk more about both of these. The flyer, it's got 2 flyers. It's got our next 2 big presentations on it, so feel free to grab those. What do we do about all this, right? We know we've got a problem. We know we've got a lot of work ahead of us. So within Evergreen Fire, there's a number of things that we do. I would like to take a minute and acknowledge Chief Ouija is in the back. I will say I came in here just over 2.5 years ago following the Caldor fire in Tahoe. And I have to commend Chief Ouija for putting up with me and all of my crazy ideas and running with this stuff so that we can build out this program. Over here, I've got Keenan Crowdy as one of my mitigation specialists. Carrie is our other one, she couldn't be here. Wildland Captain James Estel. And then I've got Everett and Porkins, I don't even know your first name. Josh, that's right. A couple of our wildland crew guys. And then Sarah Ben Turner, who is our ambassador specialist, and I'll speak more to her in a bit too. So again, thank you to Chief Ouija for letting us build this wildland division for what it is, and to create and provide educational opportunities and home assessment outreach opportunities for our community. We do this through a number of different ways. On my side of the house, within the wildland division, we do the outreach, mitigation programs, volunteer ambassador programs. And with that, we utilize Colorado State Forest Service's home emission zone guidelines. Those defensible space guidelines we just discussed, that comes from those Colorado State Forest Service home emission zone guidelines. I'm very lucky I didn't have to memorize new stuff because it was all in there in Tahoe from 15, 20 years ago. With that, we also partner with Rotary Wildfire Ready. I've got a QR code that y'all can screen here in a few more slides. They have wonderful resources that reinforces the work that we're doing, as well as tools for evacuation. We provide our defensible space and home hardening, home assessments for free. If you are interested in signing up for one, get with Keenan afterwards. He can get you signed up today. There's also a QR code at the back that you can sign up on our website on your own. We also are continuing our community chipping program, the community curbside chipping program. Again, there's a QR code in back if you're interested. When you go to sign up, it's going to take you to a page that looks like this, and you'll enter your address in right here. One of the things that we have is our community wildfire protection plan grows our community into 26 plan units. And those 26 plan units, every single person that lives in Evergreen Fire District lives in a plan unit. Of those plan units, I believe 23 of them have active ambassador, volunteer ambassador teams. Yeah, 22 plan units, 43 volunteer ambassadors. If you are a volunteer ambassador in here, raise your hand. I've got Kurt Gulch, I've got, what's that? Oh, yeah. I've got
Wood Creek.
Yeah, I've got Wood Creek, Gary, I've got
Woods and Evergreen.
Woods, I've got North Turkey Creek, I've got Brookport, or Buffalo Park Estates. So you've got a lot of representation here. What we have through a grant program is Sarah Ben Turner is our ambassador specialist. She helps me with coordinating all of the volunteer work through these plan units and through these ambassador teams. These ambassadors are our lifeblood into the community to get work done within our community to help get the message out. A lot of y'all may even be here because you got an email from our ambassador. We were fortunate enough to be able to get vests for our ambassadors as well as business cards. So if you see them walking around the neighborhood in the community, they're there because they are working directly with us to get good information out to you. One of the things we've also done is add in our monthly newsletters with tips, information on events, all of this stuff. It's called One Bad Day. Again, if you are linked in with your ambassadors, they will forward this on to you. They are also archived on our website. Chipping program, up and going. They have, the signups are online. There's a QR code in the back. We're asking you to do a lot. This is one way we can help you get it off the property, and now you're there. As we go forward, one of the presentations we're going to be doing is going to be May 22nd at the high school. It's going to be directly related to evacuation. And that's our annual Wildfire Forum, and this year we are focusing on evacuation. There are cards in the back with a QR code. If you are not signed up for Lookout Alert, do it before you leave the building. This is how you will be notified. Everyone needs to sign up for it. And this now holds true for both Clear Creek and Jefferson counties. Are there any Clear Creek folks in here? Okay, so y'all just changed in February from Code Red over to Lookout Alert. So everyone in our fire district is now Lookout Alert. This is the Rotary Wildfire Ready app. I strongly encourage you to download this app, go through it. The Rotary Wildfire Ready stuff, they also have a great website. They have fantastic evacuation checklists. They are checklists that they work with us to vet out and make sure they covered everything that needed to be covered. It's a great resource. Those checklists are invaluable. For anyone who has had to evacuate, you know at the end of it, you forget something. So know that having that practice out ahead of it, having the checklist, going through it, talking through it with your family, knowing if it's going to take you longer than you think it's going to take you to evacuate, knowing your roads in and out, evacuation checklists. What are you going to do about your pets? Do you know your neighborhood and the different routes you may or may not have options to get out in? Lots of great resources here. All the good stuff. Evacuation is a very real thing for us. And the blunt reality is there are way more people in our community than our roads can handle. So the best thing you can do is be prepared. This will be our Wildfire Forum, May 22nd at Evergreen High School. And it's in the theater auditorium at the high school. This was the Caliber fire in Tahoe. All that backup, 10 days notice. They have plenty of time. The thing I'd like to talk about, it's a little bit, I don't want to say controversial because in my mind it's no longer controversial. The impacts that we are seeing and we know are continuing and we know are escalating are due to climate chaos. In 1980, we averaged 3 catastrophic events, meaning $1 billion in recovery efforts a year. We are now over 20 a year, adjusted for inflation. Over 20 catastrophic environmental events a year in 23 years. Things are escalating. And the reality of that, we are now seeing all over social media because people can't get insurance. They're struggling to get insurance. Their insurance rates are going up. This is not a money-making endeavor for an insurance company to bank on. And this is what we are dealing with. Now, the reality of this, if you look, the orange, that's wildfire. We're a pretty tiny piece of that pie. This is a cumulative issue. Severe storms, hurricanes, flooding, ice storms, hail damage. Here in Evergreen, it's hail damage and fire. Those are our two biggest risks and the two things that make us uninsurable. Now, I can't control hail, but I can control recommending what you can do on your property to reduce the risk of fire on your property. With that, we can come out. We can do, I'm actually the one that will come out and I'll do a defensible space inspection after you've had a home assessment. And if your defensible space is completed, I can provide you a letter that says, on this day, you did what I asked you to do and reduced your risk. This is not getting better. And to be honest, I saw this in 2006 in Tahoe, and it had nothing to do with fire. My fire in Tahoe was 2007. I started getting calls from homeowners about insurance companies threatening to drop them following Hurricane Katrina. That was when the insurance companies realized, whoa, we could really lose our shirts if we invest too much in one area. So this is the insurance argument. It's not a new one. It's a heavily escalating one. And it's not going to change. So what can we do? Fire is going to happen. This is a naturally occurring feature of the environment we chose to live in. So what do? It is our responsibility to the land, to our neighbors, to our community, to do as much as we can to change that fire behavior, to give us a chance to fight it. If and when it starts coming into our neighborhoods, we want to be able to fight it. But we can't do that if you don't help us. Because if that fire takes hold in your neighborhood and it rips, we can't fight it. All we can do is hope we get everyone out of the way. Being prepared, having your go bag, getting your evacuation plans in place so that even if you don't get the notification, if you see smoke and the hair on the back of your neck stands up, you get out. I can't tell you how many people told me that when Elephant Butte was going on, and I'll keep in mind, come back to my first fully involved structure in Angora, a mile and a half ahead of the fire. I have a map of the Elephant Butte fire in my office, and I have the diameter around it at a mile and a half, 3 miles, and 5 miles. Almost our entire fire district is within 5 miles of Elephant Butte. So half of our district was within an ember landing on their property from Elephant Butte. I cannot tell you how many people, when we've gone out and done inspections in that adjacent area, people that were downwind of Elephant Butte, we asked them, what did you do during Elephant Butte? They said, well, you know, I cracked open a beer, I sat on my porch and I watched the air show. You are now part of the problem if that's what's coming out of your mouth, right? Because then, if it goes sideways, now you're clogging the road and you're impeding our efforts to try and stop the fire. Because our role is life safety first. So what we ask is be prepared. Evacuate. Evacuate when you're told to evacuate, and if you're not certain about your comfort or your speed in which to evacuate, feel free to evacuate sooner, because we know our roads are going to be congested. We absolutely know it. We need you to do your home hardening in your defensible space. What I know is that that first mulch structure was the start of my full conflagration. Every house in the neighborhood adjacent to that house, and downwind from the family's last name was Haas, from the Haas's house, every house burned. Because once the houses start, they domino each other. That's what happened in the Marshall Fire. That's the definition of a conflagration fire. The houses start to domino each other. The radiant heat put off from a single structure fire, if an adjacent home is within 60 feet, well, it will almost always ignite. So we need you to do your defensible space so your house isn't the first domino. We need you to do your defensible space so that you can change that fire behavior if it does move on your property. Questions? I've left you in silence. Fantastic. I want to say real quick, again, if you are curious who your ambassador is, or you want to be a part of your ambassador team and help us within your neighborhood, please see Sarah Beck. If you want to sign up for a home assessment, please see Keenan. If you have questions about chipping, see these other three guys up front. All right, questions? Yes, sir.
Will you make a remark?
What's that?
I have more of a remark.
Oh, okay.
I'm a farmer's insurance agent, and I have partnered up with a few fire mitigation experts in the area. One of them, you may know Kyle Benson of Forest Works. And we're on the ground voluntarily doing fire mitigation, that sort of thing. And we're finding success. I'm writing policies like you would with me. Because we're getting on top of it. The thing about the fire line scores, if your insurance agent is telling you no can do, we're pulling out, get a second opinion because a lot of that data is a year old. It's based on artificial intelligence and on satellite photography. But when we get on the ground, I'm getting around houses, taking pictures, and then taking the actions necessary and showing the underwriters. Those fire line scores can be beaten down at electrical policy.
I will say that, with that, there are a number of different data mining groups out there that have pulled data on all our homes. And, to his point, the data is flawed. There was one of them I was looking at, my own house, and it's telling me that I had combustible siding. I don't, I have fiber cement siding. So, to that point, you have to get somebody out to ground truth and fix the data that's out there, because they're already looking at all of our data. There was another.
And what is somewhat reliable among the forest of artificial intelligence assessment sites is called riskfactor.com. It'll give you the fire risk, your wind risk, and your flood risk. It's known to be a little bit more accurate than its peers. Not the full truth, but other than the person.
There's another question. I'll come back to you.
From Berkeley Park, we live out of Evergreen to about 4 miles. And what is the first and most important phone number we should call if we see where
911.
911?
Absolutely, yes. If you see smoke, if you have any concern whatsoever, 911.
911.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yes, if you replace your wheel siding with a cheap starting board, you get a reduction on your insurance.
It depends on the insurance company. It's not necessarily a reduction, but hey, you might get to keep it. You get to keep your insurance, right? It does help, absolutely. Again, those risk factors are what the insurance companies are looking at and going off of. Replacing combustible siding with hardy board, or it's a fiber cement siding. Hardy board is a brand name, so like Kleenex is tissue, right? So hardy board, if you replace it with that, it absolutely will help reduce your risk, and that is a factor with insurance, absolutely. Yes?
What would you recommend or have recommended for fire in the Marshall area or in a community like that. Apparently there were a lot of trees, right?
So a big part of what started the conflagration in Marshall Fire, and actually it's, I didn't ask you to cue this, but it's one thing that I failed to mention, fences. I did mention that they're one of the fourth most likely ways of igniting. So that grass fire, now keep in mind, that was a catastrophic wind event. That was a absolute nightmare wind event. That grass fire blew into fences. And those fences, you know, the open space, that Marshall Mesa open space, that grass, you know, the properties butted right up to it. They all have beautiful wooden little picket fences that went right into their structures. And it served as a wick. So the grass fire caught the fence, and the fence pulled the fire right into the structures. Once that first row of houses ignited, that radiant heat and the amount of wind, not only were you getting the radiant heat ignition as a domino effect, but then you were also getting a massive amount of ember loss. Once houses burned, the embers that look like the big snowflakes in a wildland fire become chunks of insulation. Shake shingles, I've seen shake shingles that are fully involved and wafted through that wind. So once houses start to burn, now the embers become an even bigger issue. Because if you have a chunk of insulation the size of a volleyball that hits your house and drops, and it's dropping into combustible material, it's going to burn and have a lot greater chance of igniting something. So that's where that domino effect happens.
What would you recommend for people to live in those kind of communities?
You know, one of the things that they're starting to look at in developments is how to better harden developments. One of the things that they're looking at, there's a development that's trying to be kind of a pilot in this feature, especially like just off the hill in these open spaces with the grasses, is, you know, most of these homes, because it's prime real estate to butt the house up to the open space, right? But what they're looking at is putting the roads on the outside. So now you have 20, maybe even 30 feet of asphalt between the open space and the structure. So things like that. They're looking, you know, again, WUI codes, changing the building codes, creating that home hardening feature in the process of building so that we're not having to go back after the fact and ask people to change things out. That is inherent in the original building of the neighborhood, the structures, stuff like that. Yes?
I live in Craigmont Estates, and I'm a director on our HOA. We just had on the 18th of April, we just had a developer who is asking to develop 7 lots adjacent to us, right? Subdivide 38.88 acres or whatever. And one of the requirements that the county has put to this developer is that they must have sprinkler systems, roof sprinkler systems. So that's coming, as far as the county is concerned.
So there's a couple of things in that vein, if you will. First and foremost, if you are not familiar with it, we are not a full-time paid department. So the firefighters for Evergreen Fire and Rescue that show up are volunteers. They're your neighbors. It's a wonderful thing because you have folks in your neighborhood, in your community that will be there as a first responder. However, we also know that in these wildland fires, our resources will very quickly and very easily get overrun. You will not necessarily have an engine in your neighborhood, certainly not in your driveway. So this is why we use the science to build out our properties to stand alone. Part of that goes into the building and the development, and what Jefferson County in particular is doing right now is looking at planning and zoning, building codes, as well as their community wildfire protection plans, an evacuation annex. All of these things are being looked at as one big coordinated effort at the Jefferson County level because we know We've got to get ahead of this. We have got to start being proactive in our approach to wildland fire rather than reactive. It's super exciting for the reaction and see all the shiny fire trucks show up, but let's give us a fighting chance on the front end by being proactive.
Is trash decking or that style of decking better than wood?
Yes and no. So if you didn't hear his question, is Trex decking any better? Yes and no. So decking, Trex decking, Trex is a brand, so it's composite decking or synthetic decking. And it came out in the early 2000s. A number of my homes I lost because of Trex decking. Trex decking is made of sawdust and petroleum. Burns really well. Burns different though. It doesn't ignite. And we have, just so you know, we do have a video of our burn demonstration on our website, and one of the decks was Trex decking. Now, what has evolved over the many, many years, and mostly through California, a lot actually through Steve Quarles' work, is that there are fire-rated synthetic and composite decks now. So what we talked about and what we did with the burn demonstration, you heard me say Class A roof. What that means, there are Class A, B, and C ratings on home materials. Those materials, so the Class C, do you want to grab those brands out of the office real quick? Class C is a small cube. Class B is a little bit bigger, and Class A is about yay. I think we have A and B in the office. I'm going to have Keenan grab them. So what happens is they take that C brand and they stick it on that piece of material, they ignite it. If it doesn't compromise and fire does not spread, it's at least Class C. Then they'll take a Class B brand, put it on that material, ignite it, and if it doesn't spread, ignite, or compromise, it's at least Class B. We don't have a Class A. So this is a Class A. So Class A material has this fully ignited on it, and it does not compromise, ignite, or spread through full consumption of this big chunk of wood. It's hard to say, you can kind of see, it's lots of little slats, three stacks deep. So that's how you know our roofs are Class A, and actually our roofs are considered Class A construction, Class A structure roof, meaning it doesn't ignite any of the underlayers either when this brand burns on it. There are Class A, B, and C rated deck boards, some of which are wood. I eBay, that nice hardwood, it's a Brazilian hardwood, that has a fire rating. Maintaining good cedar decking has a fire rating. Log homes, if you maintain them, keep your chinking in place, make sure there's no holes, you maintain it well, those are fire rated. So there's a lot of options out there. If you are looking to replace your deck, I strongly encourage you to educate yourself on the materials that are at your disposal to use, because there are more and more fire-rated materials out there, and we definitely strongly urge you to use them. Just like with the siding, it can help from an insurance factor. That's something, if you change out your deck and you put fire-rated deck boards down, first call should be your insurance agent to let them know. For two reasons. One, you want replacement costs to be appropriate, but two, it can reduce that risk. Yes?
We were lucky enough to have a cistern in our neighborhood. From your department, keeps an eye on that on an annual basis, or is that done?
Yeah, we do cistern sheds. We don't do all of them every year, but we do quite a few of them through the summer, and they work their way around the district. So we have actually 2 retired firefighters who help us with that, and they'll go out and test them, make sure they get a draft on them, check pressure levels. We do check the levels every year, and every one of them at the fire department. Some of them were put in when the little subdivisions were put in, and they're actually owned by the HOA, or they're owned by a homeowner whose property it sits on. So we're working through trying to reach out to those homeowners to make sure, to get permission to test those and to check the water levels on them, so when we do need them, we know that they're functioning on their homes.
We did carry out and go over the house and working on the principal space now. If you come back out and check out, how, if you have any experience with how the insurance company responds to that?
So, and what I would do is I come out, I use what we call our short form, which is just defensible space. I can mark no recommendations needed. I can do a letter that says that on this day, there were no recommendations seen on that property for defensible space and, with the Colorado State Forest Service guidelines. It depends on the insurance company. Quite honestly, it depends on factors that are far outside of a lot of people's control. Some of it comes down to the value of your home. Some of the insurance companies are just trying to reduce their replacement cost. I've seen insurance companies pull letters on folks because their neighbor has a shake roof. It really does depend on the insurance company. I do not send a letter. I give the letter to you to do with it what you choose. But I keep in mind, it is only good for that day, because that was the day I observed no recommendations. I can walk off your property and you decide to throw 5 quarts of firewood back on your deck, right? I will tell you, like, it can be the smallest of things. There was a home in Southern California that was, in this new development, nice, everything was modeled. They had gotten all the retrofitting done, except the transom windows on either side of their door. And they left a broom, and an ember ignited that broom. The broom blew out the transom window. Embers went inside, the house burned from the inside out. They had it on video. So it can be the little things. What are those embers going to land in? Now that being said, wildfire can be wildly unpredictable too. And I've seen some houses after fires where, any of us are standing there scratching our heads going, how did this place not burn? This one did, but this one didn't. It can be unpredictable in that sense too. We just know what we know. The science proves to reduce your risk, and that's what we're going to encourage, is to help us cumulatively across the community reduce as much of our risk as possible. So thank you for working on that. I appreciate that. Yes?
Kind of on that same topic, we got a building permit this year, and as part of that, Jeffco asked for an inspection. So do you know if that's any similar or different?
So right now, when you pull a building permit, Jefferson County does require you to do your defensible space to receive your signed-off permit, your certificate of occupancy, whatever the case may be. Unfortunately, you remember how I mentioned we're doing a coordinated effort at the county to update your planning and zoning and the community wildfire protection plans and everything. So unfortunately, the way the program is set up now is that you use a private contractor to do your defensible space assessment. And the guidelines that they are working off of are the 2012 Colorado State Forest Service guidelines. They are not the current ones. That's something that we as fire districts have brought to the county and said, that's not okay. Y'all need to be going off the current guidelines. So yes, they require it. Yes, it is part of that permit hold process. It is not the current guidelines just yet. It is going to become that as this process moves through the coordinated updates on all their different ordinances, planning and zoning, CWP, and everything else. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
You said that the current alert system is Lookout.
Correct.
Alert. Did you say that the existing system's turned into that?
So if you are in Clear Creek County, Clear Creek was code red as their emergency services. They switched over to Lookout Alert.
What about
Jefferson County has been lookout alert for 2.5 years, two and some change. So in the back, there are cards that have the QR code to sign up and information on lookout alert. Again, please get signed up. You can also get it set up so that, like I got the winter storm warning, I got the wind warning. It will give you those notifications. This is going to be that information you need in the event of a wildfire, in the event of an evacuation notice. That being said, when you think about driving home tonight, how many of us will have cell service the entire way home? Reliable cell service. Nobody. Because we have such reliable cell service in the mountains. I don't know about you or me, but I am not putting my life on the line for whether or not this thing works. Situational awareness is always going to be number one. If you're sitting at home and you smell smoke, I'll tell you, when the Angora fire happened, I was sitting at home and if you've been in a fire, you know, the color of the sky changes, and it changes very dramatically, and the hair on the back of your neck will in fact stand up. Don't sit there and go, well, I'm not being told to evacuate, so I should be okay. Let it be a little bit primal. Fire, bad. Go. If you aren't sure, don't wait. Let yourself, your situational awareness, your survival instincts kick in and get out. If you know you have large animals to load up, if you've got small animals you got to wrangle around your house and catch, be prepared and get out early. Okay? But also sign up for lookout alert. All right? Questions? Yes.
If there is such a wildfire going, as we know about, and you get the alert, how do you determine which route to take?
A couple of different options. First and foremost, everybody in this room is going to spend the next couple of days, maybe this weekend, practicing the various ways out of your neighborhood. Know your neighborhood and know the ways to get out of it. Okay? So, knowing where the fire is, there are a number of different, and actually there are links through Rotary's app, there's some on our website as well, where you can check and see where the fire is. Now keep in mind, when a fire first starts, that information coming back is a little bit delayed. And this is some of the stuff that we'll talk about during the evacuation forum at the high school. But you think about it, somebody calls 911, they see smoke. We've got to wait for us to get toned out, and then we go looking for it, and we look, and we hopefully find it real quickly, and then we have to hike into it to know what we're dealing with, right? We have to hike into Elephant View. So there's a little bit of time before that radio transmission comes back with what we're dealing with, where we're dealing with it, and what areas may be at risk. Now, that being said, situational awareness. Evergreen is quite a challenge in that regard because, like I said, we're about a 10-mile radius district. Corner to corner, it's not much more than 10 miles at our widest points. But we all know that if you were to drive from Floyd Hill to North Turkey Creek, it's going to take you almost an hour and some change. It's ridiculous, right? So knowing and being familiar with your landmarks, your areas around you, again, situational awareness. If you see the smoke coming from that direction, it's probably best to drive the other direction, right? So being familiar with our neighborhoods and our communities, having those apps downloaded that can help you identify that as we know it, we push that out. Jefferson County Sheriff is the primary PIO for evacuation notices, and so that will be one of the main ones that we will reference to during evacuations to give you direction. Does that help? We'll also be going in greater detail during the evacuation forum on May 22nd with representatives from the Emergency Management, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, Clear Creek Sheriff's Office, Clear Creek Emergency Management, Clear Creek Fire Authority, JEFCOM 911. So we'll have a lot of agency reps there to discuss in more detail. Yes?
Is there any movement afoot, like our street, we live on Thimbleberry Lane in North Evergreen, and there's Thimbleberry Lane in South Evergreen, and when there was a fire last spring, Jefferson County posted that it was the one that we were, it was really the other one, and we were like, why didn't our lookout alert work? And we drove down the street, and we could see the fire at the South Evergreen one, and like, is there movement afoot to clear up, like change people's street names, or how do you like combat stuff like that?
I wish there was an easy solution to that. It is incredibly accurate and incredibly chaotically confusing. There are Columbine Lane, Drive, Court, Circle, Road. None of them are near each other, mind you. Thimbleberry, Drive, Lane, Court, Road, none of them near each other. And it's like this all over our district, unfortunately. The lookout alert system has increased, working off of the mapping that they use, as well as, they work, all of our notifications and stuff go through JeffCom 911. I am not aware of any movement to change road names, but I feel your pain because it is quite confusing. When we're even just trying to do home assessments, it's like, okay, you can't just tell me Columbine. I need to know, is it a lane, a road, a street, a court, a circle? Chief, anything extra there?
Some of that falls on us, being on scene, law enforcement, fire. If we give an address, a number, there should be a duplicate number of that number on another Thimbleberry Drive. There'll be different numbers. So the amount of information we give dispatch will build that is a key part of that. If somebody did just say it's on Thimbleberry, they did their best to try and pinpoint where that might be. I think there's one area in the entire district where there's duplicate name and numbers, and it happens to be Soda Creek Road. There's a Soda Creek Road in Idaho Springs that has similar house numbers, so sometimes that gets confused. But that's the only one I know where you actually get the number and the road. They won't be able to pinpoint it exactly, and that's part of our responsibility to make sure we're clear on what the area we're working. Because as Jess said, try and count how many pine roads, pine drives, how many aspens there are everywhere. So we have to be more clear, we have to specify that.
And to build on that, and we talked about that a little bit ago when you asked, what do you call? You call 911. The more information you can provide when you call, the better. It's never going to be too much information, let me put it that way. So knowing, your location, again, situational awareness, are you looking west or are you looking north? Are you looking at Cobb's Peak or are you looking at Hicks Mountain? Knowing your surroundings, I hate these things, but they're wonderful. There are apps that can tell you what the peak names are. If you stand on your deck and you hold it up, it's going to give you your skyline and tell you what mountains you're looking at. If you call 911 and you can see that plume of smoke is on Elephant Butte, and you can give us that information and give JeffCom 911 that information, that's going to get us there faster. One of the things that I like to point this out is, just to the title of our newsletter, One Bad Day. What we are planning for and what we are working against is one bad day. That's it. We had 15 plus wildfires last year, right, roughly? Over a dozen. How many did you actually hear about? Because we get on it. It's a combination of a start with a weather event where things become catastrophic. Ill-prepared communities, with those two factors, that's where things go sideways. What we plan for are the one-offs. If you think about hurricanes, I'm originally a Gulf Coast girl. So if you think about hurricanes, we run through the alphabet every year now. often going into the Greek alphabet, but you only remember a handful. You remember Irma, Maria, Katrina, Hugo, Sandy, right? You remember the big ones. We are preparing for that, but we're also preparing for those small tiny ones too. We're preparing for your neighbor's kitchen fire. Because if your home has been built to be home hardened and defendable, your neighbor's fully involved structure fire is less of a threat to you. We have to do everything we can to reduce our risk in our community. Otherwise, one bad day is all it will take to change the landscape of our entire community. I cannot stress it enough. You can attest to it from the Dixie Fire. It will never look the same. The community changes. You want to talk about explaining to your kids why their best friend's no longer sitting next to them in school? It's because their home burned down and there aren't enough rentals left in the community to house them, so they have to move. Businesses close because homes burn down of the business owners. This is not something to be taken lightly. We're losing our insurance over it. The more we can do and the more we can fortify our community to prevent catastrophic impact from wildfire, the better off we'll all be. And the reality, the thing that I know keeps us up at night, is life safety. The safer you can make it for yourselves to get out and for us to fight the fire, the better off we'll all be. And our community will be able to survive it. Any other questions? I'm here as long as y'all need me to be here.
Are you shaping this so that people that are not here have access to it? And if not, in the future, and
I know you'll always ask that. I don't take this, we are going to record the evacuation forum, so that one will be recorded. You want me to start over? Is that what it is? Yep. Yeah, that's part of what we're looking at. We've been revamping our section of the website as well for those same reasons. Yes?
With the home hardening in the defensible space, when the inspections are done at my house, I get this laundry list of, and I thought I was doing really well at my house. But is there like the top three or something, defensible space or home hardening things that when you look at the history of house fires, houses catching fire, largest percentages due to this or that? Yeah.
So the largest percentage is from embers. And one of the things and one of the features that we're working on and I'm still tweaking on, what we added to our program this year with our home assessments is it's an online program where Keenan and Carrie will come out and enter in all of the defensible space and home hardening recommendations. One of the things that we're working, the program is called Fire Aside, and one of the things we're working with the developers on is adjusting those rankings, because what happens after Keenan and Carrie come out, they email you an online report, and it has a checklist in the back of the report, and identifying and prioritizing that checklist for homeowners, we're working on tweaking that and making it even better. It's actually already really good, but there's some stuff that we're going to tweak on it a little bit. We're going to work on that actually next week with them. But what's cool about this program is it has this online checklist. It is a livable document for you as a homeowner. You get your report and you go through your checklist, and as you do stuff, so Keenan comes out, he gets you super excited, and as soon as he leaves, you rake those pine needles up, and you get that area cleared out. You get your report, and it says, rake the pine needles. You can take a picture and submit it to your report. Keenan gets notified, and he goes in and says, yeah, they did exactly what I asked them, and it comes off your report. So it's a living document that you're able to see that checklist, that prioritizes and works you through it. Basic prioritization, if you can do any home hardening features, absolutely start there. Home hardening, I get it. It can be pricey. There are things that Keenan and Carrie will discuss with you when they come out that are more affordable. I'm not telling you to re-side your house with non-combustible. I'm asking you to make sure that bottom 6 inches is non-combustible. For some people, that might just be taking off that bottom combustible plank and you've got the concrete footing there underneath, and it's fine. That's great. Concrete's good. So it could be small things like that, and Keenan and Carrie will walk you through that personally and work you with your structure itself rather than just generic slides. In addition to that, the next biggest piece of priority, 0 to 5 foot. It is literally your first and last line of defense. That's where those embers are going to land, and if the fire moves in on the ground, that's where you can stop it in its tracks. First and last line of defense. I will tell you there are some areas around Colorado who are already getting to a place where they're making that 0 to 5 foot non-combustible mandatory. Doing, area ordinances and whatnot to do that. It's that important. So if you can do nothing else this weekend, because I'm going to task you all with homework, 0 to 5 foot zone, make it non-combustible. If I were to walk around with matches, popping them into your 0 to 5 foot zone, what happens? That match should just land and fizzle out. Bare dirt, rock, irrigated, well-maintained flower bed.
All right, what about bushes?
Bushes? So it depends on the bush. Again, high-rise landscaping. Colorado State Forest Service has a list of plants that are, it rates their flammability, so you can pick and choose. What we recommend in the lean, clean, and green zone, in that 5 to 30 foot zone, and even beyond, is for every foot of height a bush has, you give it 2.5 feet of clearance. Not underneath the drip lines of trees, spaced, well maintained. Especially in that lean, clean, and green zone, nothing dead, diseased, or dying. Now the caveat to that, juniper and scrub oak, nowhere on the property. Get them off. Highly volatile, highly flammable, get them off the property. Lilacs, whether, different, there's various types, snowberry, gooseberry, chokecherry, whether you've got it done as a tree or a bush. There's a wide variety of plants and bushes that are absolutely acceptable to have in that 5 to 30 and obviously 30 to 100. But again, we're going to mitigate it. We're going to break it up so that it is not a horizontal or a vertical fuel ladder. Any other questions? Yes, Sharon.
Just wanted to mention that we will have the video of tonight's presentation up on my Mountain Towns YouTube channel under the wildfire preparation playlist that we have. Because we've recorded pretty much every wildfire community forum that's ever been held for the last 12 years.
Good job. Thank you, Sharon. Yes.
On the road, we have to have a couple of structures that are occupied. So if they're in between owners or if they're just abandoned homes. One in particular is not having anybody there for years. I looked up in the county records and nothing's going on with the property. So I would, do you keep an eye out on properties that are occupied?
Not necessarily. To be blunt, I have plenty of occupied homes that I still need work on, that have active engaged homeowners that I can get work done with. I will say that we've been doing some of these pilot projects for evacuation routes and roadside mitigation and targeting high evacuation route roads and trying to get everyone to do their work on those roads. And so in those instances, we will try to contact those property owners. Sometimes it's just never going to happen. I had it really bad in Tahoe because it's so many second homeowners in Tahoe. But sometimes, you know, the original owner dies and it gets passed down the family and the kids are on the East Coast and they never get the vacation house that was up here. So it can get problematic. You know, again, when we're working in targeted areas, you know, whether it's us, you know, as mitigation folks, or whether it's our ambassadors trying to help coordinate that, and there are some areas that we have tried to make those efforts, but we can't force it. There are no laws or ordinances here. Yes.
Do you have any, sort of like, you sync up at all with companies like Aspen and so forth, that we're already aware that they do mitigation in coordination with Excel. But are they linked with you at all to get your recommendations?
I actually coordinate through with Excel and Core on some of our project areas, and so I let them handle that on those, especially on those line clearance situations. Yes.
I think I heard, I'm gonna ask you if, did Jeffco increase their slash collection sites this year, like planning to?
They are, we actually just looked today, and they haven't updated the website yet, but they are actively looking to increase, that's why I didn't comment on it in the slide. Usually in this presentation I have their locations and dates, but they are looking to increase their locations and the time windows that their applications. But yeah, Jeffco / Google that, and you can actually get an email alert for when they post their dates. Any other questions? All right, fantastic. Well, again, thank you everyone for coming. The